Flashback to a golden summer night on the Jersey Shore. Memories of adventure, music and wild nights. Their friendship was built on shared chaos nights, where nothing mattered except getting lost together. The party wasn't just big, it was legendary, and they were right in the middle of it. Jimmy's connections made the night impossible to forget, even for those who didn't know half the names. By midnight, reality faded. Time and space dissolved into euphoric confusion. They weren't just drunk, they were euphoric, convinced nothing could top this night. The party had reached its peak, and they were barely keeping up. They weren't just beautiful, they were magnetic, and now the night had a new direction. In this coastal town, where height is rare and prized, being tall isn't just an advantage, it is practically a status symbol. The girls weren't chasing charm, just structure. A man who could hold himself without collapsing, even if no one remembers each other's names. What matters is that someone still pulls you out of chaos and into something better. The drinks didn't just numb the senses, they rewired reality for those who needed it most. There's something magnetic about the way wealth and confidence move through a room. They don't just attract attention, they redefine what you think matters. The beach was more than sand and waves, it became their escape route, a canvas for conversation, stripped bare of pretension. And then came the invitation not just to leave, but to belong somewhere new. It wasn't supposed to end here, but sometimes, endings are where beginnings truly begin. They said it wasn't just about the house, it was about being seen, respected, and held in someone else's world without having to fight for it. Inside, reality softened. The voices became clearer, and for once, they weren't just trying to impress someone, they were listening. They didn't need to be loud, just honest, and that was enough to pull you in like gravity. This wasn't just another night of partying, it was a moment where the noise faded, and clarity emerged, even if only for an hour. Even the smallest details began to slip away, but not before leaving their mark. Melting isn't weakness, it's surrender, and sometimes, that's the only way to feel truly alive again. The body forgets itself, but the soul remembers why it's here. It was temporary, but enough to know that sometimes, the best escapes aren't planned, they're stumbled upon. The beach house wasn't just a destination, it was a mirror, reflecting everything they'd lost and everything they were ready to reclaim. The space was so refined it hummed with silent opulence, not flashy, just perfect. Every surface was curated, no mess, no chaos, just presence. She didn't just lean in, she swallowed time. And then nothing. Time didn't just pause, it rewrote itself. He didn't just wake, he reawakened into another world. He wasn't the only one missing. He was a stranger in his own life. He remembered nothing, except the moment before everything erased itself. He had no point of reference for the last 10 hours. No landmarks, just trees, and an endless road curving into darkness. He asked the clerk behind the counter for his phone. The only thing he had left. The clerk stared, wondering if Ariel was trying to trick him. He called his sister, the first person who came to mind. He explained everything, his terror, confusion, the possibility of being robbed or drugged. Then Ryan walked in, the second person, who had been missing for hours. They hugged, like they hadn't seen each other in ages, but both knew exactly what had happened. They called the police. Their story seemed solid, but doubts began creeping in. The officers started questioning them, not accusing outright, but clearly skeptical. He argued it was impossible for them to stumble that far on their own. To everyone's shock, his phone had been tracked and found nearby. The cops agreed to drive them, hoping their phones might hold clues. They found both phones intact, right where they had been dumped. The cops started saying maybe they hadn't been robbed. Perhaps they'd simply lost their phones while intoxicated. They didn't believe us about Marcela's house, said, we've been out of our minds. And they left with their cards, promising to call if anything else came up. We were supposed to check out Marcela's place, but they wouldn't budge. Even after we insisted. It wasn't until I checked my messages that everything started making sense. Or rather, none of it did. He called us back minutes later, sounding like he thought we died, said he'd come pick us up, and we waited. But nothing happened. We tried calling them back, but no answer. Then we realized, none of our cards had been used, not even once. She claimed her house was hers. We never saw a key or ID. But someone else drove us to town, and then switched clothes on us without a single cut. It was 1 hour from the beach house. Yet somehow, we ended up in this place, stripped of memory and identity. Ryan and I ended up driving all the way back to the shore just to find that house again. We retraced our steps, walking along the boardwalk toward where Marcela's house had been, and sure enough, we found it. He gave me a hard no. And I made up some BS story about someone lying about owning the place, which he actually found funny for a long time after. I convinced myself those girls were involved in something much bigger than me or Ryan could even imagine, maybe planning to kidnap us, or worse. Maybe they decided not to go through with it at the last second. My college friend Isabel was throwing one of those backyard gatherings, with paper plates, fireworks that went off like bombs, and food piled higher than you could imagine. It was one of the best nights I'd had in a while. Good people, good energy, kids running around with sparklers. Once the sun goes down, that part of Alabama gets real quiet. Dark 2-lane roads, flanked by thick trees. Nothing but old farmhouses or tiny churches with gravel lots scattered around. Most of the route was backroads, long stretches of empty darkness. I had music playing low and still felt good from the party. But there was something about driving through those kinds of places at night that got under my skin. About 30 minutes in, I noticed headlights behind me in the rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. Someone else had jumped onto this back road, but then they stayed exactly where they were, never changing position even when I sped up or slowed down. I tried to make room for them, moved slightly to the right, giving them space to pass. They didn't budge. That's when I decided to test them. A random left turn came up a little residential road, with maybe 4 houses scattered on either side. I took it without hesitation, wanted to get as far away from that car as possible. But 10 seconds later, the gray Nissan Altima actually turned off and made the same left turn, right in the middle of nowhere. There was about a 0% chance they belonged there. At that point, I knew for sure someone was following me. I got this sick feeling in my gut, like real danger. Like someone had a gun to my head. My heart started pounding through my chest, loud enough to make me feel like I was running out of time. I didn't know what they wanted or why they were locked onto me, but none of the reasons I could think of made me any less terrified. All I wanted: a safe place, public, with lights and people. And then, just as if on cue, that god-awful chime sounded, near empty gas tank. I swear, I've never felt so powerless in my life. My car, old 2012 Corolla, had more problems than it should have. Sometimes it gives me 20 miles, sometimes 10. And out here, gas stations don't come around every corner. I pulled out my phone to check the nearest 24-hour spot over 8 miles away. I didn't know if I'd make it, but I had no choice. Couldn't pull over with that. Out here, cops take years to arrive anywhere. I know how irrational that sounds, and I'm embarrassed writing it down. But I was just trying to be honest about how scared I felt. The road stretched longer than before. I felt stupid for being so powerless. I almost cried. Honestly, I took the turn hard and pulled into the lot in one quick motion, to give myself time to get out of the car. From inside, I could see the gray Altima through the window, slow to a stop at the edge of the lot, engine still running. Then, out of nowhere, it peeled off fast and disappeared down the road we'd come from. Even after talking to them, I still felt unsettled, not just scared, but like something was missing in the explanation. I made it home, told myself I'd never drive along rural backroads again at night. But the story didn't end there. I was sitting at home watching the news one evening, just background noise really, when a segment came on about 2 men suspected of armed robbery, attempted murder, and other crimes in rural Alabama. They showed a blurry still from a security camera. Authorities believed one suspect had fled in a stolen gray Nissan Altima, last seen heading east. He froze. The person chasing him was the very suspect they were talking about. He knew instinctively it was him. Even without proof, he felt certain. Timing, location, even the stolen car's description, all matched perfectly. He told the police his story, and then he truly understood. His own delay might have let 2 dangerous criminals slip through. He would never forget his failure not calling earlier. The guilt haunted him daily. He thought about it constantly, how close he'd come to stopping the crime. No official word ever came from the police or any media outlet. The case faded into silence. He promised himself, and anyone who might listen, he'd follow up if something changed. That's all he had left.